Well, some of you may wonder why I'm even taking the time to even disseminate this entire essay. And as I said before, all the credit belongs to Richard Moore, whose essay I'm reading here. It's probably out of perhaps a naive belief that we can actually in some way turn things around, only my belief is that it cannot be done within the framework of United States, within the United States political establishment, so to speak. So, going on with this essay, the management of the discontented societies. The post-war years, especially in the United States, were characterized by consensus politics. Most people shared a common understanding of how society worked and generally approved of how things were going. Prosperity was real, and the Matrix version of reality was very reassuring. Most people believed in it. Those beliefs became a shared consensus, and the government could then carry out its plans as intended, responding to the programmed public will. The excess democracy of the 1960s and 70s attacked this shared consensus from below, and neoliberal planners decided from above that ongoing consensus wasn't worth paying for. They accepted that segments of society would persist in disbelieving various parts of the matrix. Activism and protests were to be expected. New means of social control would be needed to deal with the economic tightening screws. Such means of control were identified and have since been largely implemented, particularly in the United States. In many ways, America sets the pace for globalization. Innovations can often be observed there before they occur elsewhere. This is particularly true of social control techniques. And I might add my own personal observation to that, that also includes so-called social media. Or, making friends via various websites and so on. The most obvious means of social control is a The most obvious means of social control in a discontented society is a strong, semi-militarized police force. Most of the periphery has been managed by such means for centuries. This was obvious to elite planners in the West and was adopted as policy somewhat and has now been largely implemented. Urban and suburban ghettos have literally become consequences of neoliberalism, and that's where it's kind of concentrated. You can really see it there, and have literally become occupied territories where police beatings and unjustified shootings are commonplace. So basically what you needed was a beefed up police force that was able to maintain control in conditions of mass unrest. Elite planners also realized that much of the Bill of Rights would also need to be somewhat neutralized, and so on. Many of my listeners, agree with this already, so I don't really need to go into it any further. But the rights neutralization project has been largely implemented, as exemplified by armed midnight raids, outrageous search and seizure procedures, and wholesale invasion of privacy, massive incarceration, and the rise of prison slave labor. So basically the Rubicon has been crossed. The techniques of oppression, long common in the empire's periphery, are now being imported here at home. In the Matrix, the genre of TV and movie police drama has served to create a reality in which rights are a joke. The accused are, from the outset, despicable sociopaths, and no criminal is ever brought to justice until some noble cop or prosecutors starts bending the rules. Government officials bolster the construct by declaring wars on crime and drugs. The noble cops are fighting a war out there on the streets, and you can't win a war, of course, unless you adopt the enemy's dirty tricks. The CIA plays its role by managing the international drug trade and making sure that ghetto drug dealers are well supplied. In this way, the American public has been led to accept the means of its own oppression. So, the mechanisms, or the mechanism, of a police state are already in place. And they will be used when necessary, as we see in the ghettos and the skyrocketing prison populations, and as we saw on the streets of Seattle during the WTO protests and recently in Canada and so on. But remember, raw force is only the last line of defense for the elite regimes. Neoliberal planners had this figured out long time ago, and they introduced more subtle defenses into the matrix. Looking at these will bring us back to our discussion of left versus right. Divide and rule is one of the oldest means of mass control, standard practice since at least the Roman Empire. This is applied at the level of modern imperialism, where each small nation competes with others for capital investments. Within societies, it works this way. If each social group can be convinced that some other group is the source of its discontent, then the population's energy will be spent in that intergroup fighting. The regime can sit on the sidelines, intervening covertly to string things along or guide them as their desired direction might be. And in this way, most discontent can actually be neutralized and force can be reserved for exceptional cases. In the prosperous post-war years, consensus politics served to manage the population. Under neoliberalism, programmed factionalism has become the frontline defense, the matrix version of divide and rule. So, moving on, next segment. Some people might find this boring, but, you know, some people may not. I'm just trying to get it out there.